See, Pat Patterson knew me. Pat Patterson was there one night when I ended a wrestler's career.
What's going on, wrestling fans? It's I, Steve Paul, and welcome to 10 Count right here on Wrestling Go. On today's edition, I'm talking to a man who doesn't like heavy metal. He doesn't like rock and roll, but he certainly likes Barry Manilow. It's Raymond Rougeau. How are you doing today?
Fine, Steve. How are you?
I do great.
I do like Barry Manilow.
Hey, man, he's got some great songs, but today we're talking about your hit. In that song for the Fabulous Rougeaus, who wrote that song?
Actually, it was a combination of Jimmy Hart, my brother, and myself that wrote the song. The French part, that was my brother and I. Jimmy Hart had the English side, and he wrote the music to it, and he did actually the vocals behind it also. So when you hear like this background, it sounds like a girl singing, and it's Jimmy Hart. And he did different soundtracks, and that was a lot of fun. Actually, we flew to Memphis to do that, and we were in the Sun Record studio in Memphis where Elvis sang, Johnny Cash sang, and the Fabulous Rougeau brothers sang.
No one can ever take that away from you.
Howdy.
Wow, that's a great place to record that song. Now, what was the big difference you feel like in the presentation of the Fabulous Rougeaus and just the Rougeaus versus Babyface and Heel? I know the difference there, but like, what presentation are you putting out there?
Basically, it was a lot more flamboyant, a lot more extroverted. It was right in your face. It was there, you know. The music, the All American Boys theme song coming out, Jimmy Hart with us, us with our capes, you know, Fabulous Rougeau brothers written on the back, with our American flags. Can't forget that. And you know, so it was just a bigger picture. It was a lot more marketable and a lot more fun, I think, for the fans. I mean, I think they loved hating us, you know, which was good because, you know, when we were babyface, we were like caught in between two chairs because we were French Canadian coming from Canada and wrestling as babyfaces and wrestling against a lot of American wrestlers. Some people found it difficult cheering for foreigners over their local patriots, let's say. So by us turning heel, it's like they were looking for a reason. When we're babyface, half the people liked us and half the people didn't because we were from another country and especially speaking a different language. So when they were looking for a reason, give us a reason to hate you guys. So basically, by turning, we gave them a reason to hate us, and by doing it, by smiling, waving the American flag, and saying that we loved America. I mean, you know, it was original, it was great, it was fun, and that's why it worked.
Right. And I love that group so much. And then, of course, 93,000 people wrestling at 3. What's that experience like? Because that was the first time something like that has ever happened.
Yeah. First time that I had the opportunity of wrestling in front of such a big crowd. It was overwhelming, actually, just the magnitude of it. Because, you know, when I broke into the business in 1971, when I was 16 years old, we were wrestling in small arenas and venues. And once in a while, like, we'd wrestle in buildings 15, 20,000 people. That was a big deal. You know, the biggest show I had done was in 1972. I was 17 years old in Montreal at Jerry Park, which is outdoor event. We had 26,000 people there. And I was 17 years old. That was quite impressive on its own. And I was the semifinal match on that card. So I had a lot of pressure. I felt it. But after that, the next thing that was like way off scale was WrestleMania 3. Because when you get there, you got all these huge stars. You got Mary Hart, Aretha Franklin. You know, just everywhere you looked, it was bigger than life. And Vince had us there early in the day. When I came into the building, I came in and I went upstairs. Like, I went into the building and looked and I was like, wow, I couldn't believe the size of the place. And thinking, this is going to be full. And I walked up in the stands right up to the top looking at the ring that looked like this big on the bottom. And I was like, looking at the bottom, I said, that's what they're going to see. But there were the giant screens over the ring. So I guess it was just for the people. It's not because you could see the action up close and feel it. No, it's just being part of, for me, one of the biggest events of all time.
Agreed. I've sat on the floor to watch professional wrestling. When someone hits the mat, it's very hard to see, like, dipping and dodging through people's heads. Hang that high up. Obviously, that's far, but you can see the action in general. But again, do you believe like WrestleMania 3 is a catalyst for a lot of territories for every single person to jump? Because it seemed like you're already there, but Axel, Jim Duggan, Bam Bam Bigelow, One Man Gang, it's like an endless amount of main event stars from other organizations all coming in right after the success of WrestleMania 3. Do you believe that's kind of like the catalyst of the reason why everyone jumped?
Well, I think, Vince started by doing his first WrestleMania. Then he did his second one. WrestleMania 3 is like, it just blew up. When I mean blow up in a positive way, it just, the whole wrestling industry just blew off any limitations, any covers that were, it was just worldwide now. It was just so big. And the place to be for any wrestler was the WWE. And Vince had a strategy is going to get the top talent for each territory. I just say around the world, but as in the United States, there were a bunch of promotions. He went to get guys from all the different promotions that were on top. My brother and I, he came to get us because he wanted to conquer the French market, and he wanted to conquer Northeastern America, which he wanted to take over the Montreal territory, and going to France, going to Belgium, to Switzerland, because like one of the first big shows we did in Paris, my brother and I were on the main event against Dino Bravo and Greg Hammer Valentine. We sold out in Paris. Why? Well, because we did French interviews, all the promos were done in French. When we got there, you had stars that were there. There was a club owner called Rougeau. You've heard of Studio 54 in New York back in the day? That was like an in place. All the stars went there and all that. Well, in Paris, there was it was Chez Regine, which is at Regine's. Well, she was there at ringside, and she saw the popularity of my brother and stuff. She invited us to her club after. I didn't go to clubs because I never drank, never smoked, everything like that. And for me, I was always pressure, always business. But I had an opportunity to go to Regine's. I was flying to Milan, Italy the next morning early. I was like, man. But it's like a one-time opportunity. I went. I agreed. My brother and I, we went. And we get there, there are bodyguards outside. The doors are locked. You don't get in. So we got there. We said, we're invited. It says, the doorman, what's your name? The Rougeau brothers. Said, oh, yes. Okay, Regine is waiting for you. He opened the door, and us, we were there. She came and got us. Well, we spent the evening with Michael Douglas, the actor, with Sade, Grace Jones, C.P. Martin, which was Johnny Holliday's former wife. She was a big star in France. We spent the evening with those people, So when she introduced us to Michael Douglas, she says, Michael, I'd like to introduce you to my friends. He says, I know who these guys are. They're the Rougeau brothers. My kids love them, So, but it was fun. But everything for me started after WrestleMania 3, because that's where everything just exploded. And wrestling was not like another market product or whatever. No, it was mainstream, and all the actors wanted to be there, and it was an in-playing to be involved with the wrestling. So for me, and like I said, Vince went and got all the top stars from all the territories and created a super territory. That's how he conquered the world, let's say.
It's true. It feels like he took over the world by getting everyone's world champion. And so if you weren't building someone else in that market, well, when Ted DiBiase leaves, you need someone to take his place. And that person just as big or as important as DiBiase was. And of course, when you come in, though, Vince McMahon is taking over the world. What's your relationship like with Vince McMahon while you are currently in the company as the fabulous Rougeaus because your characters are over. People love you and hate you. When you hug each other, they boo you when you hug each other.
Oh yeah.
What's your relationship like with Vince McMahon? Because so many companies have so many bosses and managers, but he is the head honcho.
Yeah, and he was hands on. He was always available. He was there. If you wanted to talk to him, you could talk to him. He would talk to you directly. But at that time, I could say our relationship was very professional. He respected us a lot because, the business, some guys could be major headaches, could be, could have big problems and stuff. With my brother and I, we were not headaches and not problems for him. So he respected us. He liked us. He respected our work, appreciated our work. Um, when we see him, though, it was we didn't mingle with him. Like he didn't mingle with a lot of the boys back then. And but when we cross him, hey Vince, how you doing? He says, hey guys, what's up? Everything's cool, yes. But it was like that, basically. Hello, how are you? And everything's okay. Yes, it is. Good to see you, and nice to see you too. That was about it. I became a lot closer to Vince after my wrestling career when I became the commentator, because then I remember in the beginning I started doing TV for the French market. Then I was doing French interviews, like doing translation. Then I did the French voiceovers. I was doing the broadcasting. Then Vince had me doing stuff in English also. I was doing, if you remember, at one point for a couple of years, I was doing the live interviews out of the ring. I was replacing Gene Okerlund, actually, that would do live interviews, but Gene was tired of being on the road so much, this and that. And they came up with me as a suggestion, replace Gene doing the live interviews on the ring. I did that for a couple of years. And then I got working a lot closer to Vince because I needed to get with him. Like if I'm doing an interview with Undertaker, I have to know what direction he wants that interview to go. Where, because I could go do an interview and not talk about what he wanted me to talk about. So I need the guidance. I need the direction. So I'd go to see Vince and I'd ask him where, what he wants with the interview and all that. He'd give me his idea. Then I'd come in with Undertaker. Me and Undertaker would be with Vince. He'd give us his ideas. Then we'd go away. We'd, work our interview together. We come back, run it in front of Vince. He says, okay, perfect. Or he'd have us change something. And then they'd call a truck. Okay, Raymond's ready with Undertaker. Then they'd fit us in. Okay, after the next match, you're going to do the live interview. But I did that on every TV show because I'd have interviews on every TV show. So I had a lot more interaction with Vince. And I became good friends with Vince, actually. There was one that he invited me. He was having supper with his producers. He invited me to have supper with them. One night, I'm coming down. He was having breakfast at the same hotel as me. And I said, hey, Ray, come and join me for breakfast. We sat down, had breakfast together. One time he came in studio. I was doing voiceovers. When Vince came in studio, everything stopped because Vince is going to do his thing, because he's the head honcho now and he runs the company. He'd walk in, everything shuts down. Vince does his thing, then leaves. When he came in, he says, hey, Ray, I really apologize for this. I said, hey, man, it's no problem. I'm here anyways, He says, hey, I came over with my motorcycle. He says, you know how to ride my motorcycle? I said, yeah, I got a Harley. He said, I got mine outside. Do you want to take it? Go for a ride with it if you want. But he says, promise me you won't go kill yourself now. I said, but I didn't want to go, we're at Stanford on Interstate 95, So, but I appreciate it. They offered me, take my motorcycle, go try, go for a ride on it, I did a promo with Leslie Nielsen for a SummerSlam event when there were the two Undertakers. And that was done at Vince's house. So I was at Vince's personal. When I fall in the pool, when I started, have you ever seen that promo?
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so I started on that pool side. I started. I didn't like it. I'm going to start again. And then Leslie Nielsen comes by and said, "There are what pool side trying to catch some rays." He bumps into me. I take a bump into the pool. That's Vince's swimming pool. I'm in his house there. And then I was in the house teaching in with Leslie Nielsen together. Super nice guy, by the way, he was. But I developed a great relationship with Vince. And at one point in the WCW time, I'd been approached to jump ship like a lot of people had done. And somebody even said to me, what if they tripled your salary? And I said, I'm never going to double cross Vince. So I said, don't call me again. And at one point, you remember my brother went to WCW with Pierre Calabutan. Yep. And then around him with Kevin Dunn, everybody says, what about Ray? You know, I was doing live interviews on the ring, doing all this French broadcasting. You know, what about Ray? And I knew when my brother went there, that made me a bit uncomfortable, but it was his choice. And, you know, I respect his choice. We were in San Antonio, Texas for a Survivor Series. And as I was walking down the ramp, Vince, I see, Vince coming down the ramp. He was with Pat Patterson and Kevin Dunn and all that. I was just coming down and waiting for him. And I said, Vince, can I talk to you for a moment? He said, yeah, no problem, Ray. So I said, you know, this is a small world. And I said, you know, my brother's gone to WCW. And he says, I'm sure a lot of people around here are going to start wondering about me towards you. Can you trust me? And there was a big pillar. I mean, a cement pillar, probably 10 feet diameter, holding the second floor where the elements are. I said, Vince, I said, you see that pillar right there? Well, I said, I'm as solid for you as that pillar is to this building. And I told him, I said, I'll never double cross you. I said, been approached, and I said, don't call me. I said, I'll never double cross Vince. I said, I appreciate the opportunity I got here. I appreciate, you know, being here. And I said, I'll never double cross you. He gave me a big hug. He took me aside, gave me a hug. He says, Ray, he said, I wish I had more guys like you. So I really appreciate it. I said, no, never worry about me. And I never double crossed him. And at one point, it came back because we stopped the broadcasting in French at one point. The contract was up in France. They had a problem. This guy says, what are we going to do with Ray? You know, he says he can do English interviews. How to do some English interviews? Give him something. He could have just said, well, Ray, sorry, you know, we got to let you go. No, he says, give him some English interviews. I was doing, at that point, we're doing taping for 3 weeks at a time and 2 interviews per show. He'd fly me out to where we're taping. I do 6 2-minute interviews. And I was paid full salary all year round to do 6 interviews every 3 weeks. So 12 minutes of work every 3 weeks that I was being paid because he appreciated my loyalty. And so he was returning the favor at that point.
Wow. You know, it's funny you say that because there's a lot of loyalty you hear over the years. Howard Finkel, Harvey Whippleman, other people like that who all never left. When clearly they could have, you know, Gene Okerlund left, Bobby Heenan left, Hogan, Macho Man, the list is endless. Right? Anybody who ever worked there left. And I remember the feeling amongst wrestling fans and media was, well, Vince is getting a taste of his own medicine because he stole all the top talent from all the other territories and closed it down. And now he has a monopoly over it. Well, WCW is doing the same thing, except it's not a wrestling company. It's a TV company running a wrestling show. And obviously have more money and more. They have the loyalty, obviously, you showed. He respected that. And then, you know, like I said, we became good friends. You know, when I was gone in 2002, then everything was over. And I came back home. I was gone until 2017. I came back when they brought Jean and I back to do the pay-per-views on the WWE network, broadcasting for the French market. I've been gone 15 years. First time I saw Vince, I walked in, he was still hands-on, looking at the angle of the lights and checking if everything was fine in 2017. All of a sudden, I walk up to him from behind. I said, hey, Vince, how you doing? I hadn't seen him in 15 years. He says, how you doing? He said, Ray! He gave me a hug. He says, God, it's good to see you. I said, it's nice to be back. He says, I know. And he said, Ray, you haven't changed a bit. I said, you either. He said, we're both lying, aren't we, right now? I said, yeah, but I said it's good lies, you know. But it was fun to see him again. Yeah, no, he's like the Walt Disney to professional wrestling.
What I appreciated also is I always took care of myself financially in the business. I always invested in stuff. When I came to WWE, it was like, wow, you've made it to the big leagues. You're making more money. And it opened the opportunity. I mean, got to wrestle in places I never would have dreamed of. And even when he brought me in as commentator, I was like, Vince, I've never done that before, you know? He says, you'll do fine. I learned on air how to do it, you know? But it was the opportunity game. And for me, it was like he saw something in me that I didn't see myself, you know? And that's the genius of it. He will see things in people that they don't even know they have. And personally, I always thought I wasn't good on an interview. I could, now I want to be doing the play-by-play and color and whatever on a 3-hour pay-per-view live. I could never do that, you know. But he got me to do that, you know. And so for me, he made me blossom into even more. I was more than just a wrestler. All of a sudden, I was a wrestler, English commentator, French commentator, color commentator, play-by-play, interviewer, live in the ring, live pay-per-views, 3.5, 4 hour live pay-per-view. No sweat. I'll do it tomorrow. Just like that, you know? I don't know. It just made me blossom as a person. I always appreciated that.
Yeah, you mentioned you've been around the world and back again. Where is the strangest place you think you've ever wrestled?
Strangest. Actually, it's not that it's strange. Japan was a different mentality because everywhere else in the world, it had Americanized a lot more. But actually, the first time I went to Japan was 1975. I was 20 years old. I was there for 2 months, 7 weeks actually, 7.5 weeks. It was like, you see all New Japan Pro Wrestling right now. Still, it's pretty stiff, and there's some good moves out there. Well, back then we didn't speak Japanese. The Japanese didn't speak English. They didn't speak French. You couldn't communicate. You didn't see them. You went out and you just had a match, and it was pretty hostile back then. Basically, every night you had to defend yourself, take care of yourself, almost like you were fighting for your life back then. And it was like that all the time. Guys would come back, black eyes, bloody nose, and the Japanese guys would get congratulated for making any Caucasian bleed or whatever, give a black eye. He'd get congratulated by his partners. So, it wasn't a shoot, but it was not that cooperative, let's say, at the time. A little snug. Oh, very. But now it's okay, because I always worked snug. That I didn't mind. But the thing is, like one guy, last night, I'm at the Tokyo Dome. We're having a big show. It was my last night. Yeah, Japanese guy, got a headlock, and he shoots me into the road. You don't call anything, so you don't know what's going on. Come out, you're just running, and you're going to, okay, if he's there, I'll hit him with a tackle. If he goes for something, I'll go. He kicks me in the kneecap. Okay, wow, great move. Yeah, but that's the type of thing it was, No, but it was fun. Yeah, I felt like honestly, they didn't react like the crowds did. Yeah, I know. That was a big difference there too. I just remember that they're sitting there, they introduce you, they applaud, even if you're new. And you start to wrestle, there's nothing, and you just hear, oh, but that's about it. You do a good move, you'll hear applaud. Now they're a lot louder than they were back then, but they're still a little more reserved than anywhere else. But back then, you just wrestle and you hear them clap if they saw something they like, whether it was the heel or the big, right? True.
Yeah, there's still that cultural difference of I think they consider it more like a performance. If you're in a play, you would be watching a play being like, yeah, woo, you would watch the performance versus if I'm yelling, wouldn't I be kind of interrupting your own performance?
But in 1975, we're only 30 years after Hiroshima and all that. So there were still a lot of people that were there that lost family members because of that. And it's 30 years after World War II. So there's still people that still had a grudge. And I remember going to the ring. We had security, but the security would leave enough room so that people could kick us in the legs and stuff. Yeah, give them a little shot there. Uh, that was okay for them. It's like you give them a shot. So they weren't really trying to protect you. They were, yes, in a way, half protecting you. But if somebody kicked you in the legs, oh well, so be it.
Well, while you're in that's so funny that happens. While you were in the WWF, though, Hulk Hogan's top star in the world. That guy is putting butts in seats. Everyone had a Hulk Hogan story. What's your Hulk Hogan story?
I don't have a Hulk Hogan story.
No Hulk Hogan story. You never hung out with him? Did anything crazy with him?
No. See, the thing was, like I said, I never went out to the bars, never went out drinking, never did. So for me, it was a business. I get up, I take a fly to where we're going, rent a car, check in, go to the gym, work out, sleep for a couple hours. Yeah, I'd eat, go sleep for a couple hours, go to the building, wrestle, go to bed, get up, fly to the next stop. For me, it was business, all business. So I wasn't partying on the road. That's what I was, aside from everybody else. And
how did he treat you backstage then? Because obviously he's a top dog, you're a tag team, is he treating you well?
Yeah, he was always respectful. Yeah, always respectful. I have nothing to say against Hulk. He was always fine. Actually, he worked with my brother here in Montreal, even put my brother over on a show. He did a promo last spring saying that we should be in the Hall of Fame, So I think that's because of the respect he has for us. So it's a different kind of relationship. Basically, it's not one up, oh yeah, we went to party, he went crazy and had fun. We didn't do that. But he respected being different.
Well, yeah, you could do a front flip into the ring off of the apron. I don't think anyone else could ever do that at that time, at least the men that were there.
Yeah.
So, you and the British Bulldogs are attached to a story that is filled with wrestling knowledge and excitement, because in wrestling, we all want to know what's going on behind the curtain. And that story involving the Rougeaus and the Bulldogs, like, I read the story about how Mr. Perfect's probably the one behind all of it. But reality, how does that mentally affect you going to work? Because your brother and the Dynamite Kid get into a fight, it causes a rift, probably backstage. Survivor Series even has to be booked in a certain way to make sure that you don't actually touch each other. How are you feeling going to work after that? Because I imagine there must be some concern that there could be retaliation.
Obviously, you can't go in with your eyes closed because, see, the thing is, Dynamite Kid, he had built himself a reputation as a tough guy, as a bully. Everybody knows the story of Dynamite. When he did attack my brother in Miami, obviously that was completely uncalled for and justified. It was free. I mean, he took liberties. There had to be retaliation. My brother and I, we were brought up in a family where you have to make sure that you're respected. My dad was a Golden Gloves champion, boxing champion. When he was younger, he was a doorman at a nightclub in Montreal. And the reputation in the 60s, and the reputation was, if you want to cause trouble, don't go to the Mocambo. That's where my father was. Go elsewhere, don't go there, because you're going to have a bad evening. My dad taught me how to fight when I was a kid. And he says, I'm not teaching you this so you become a bully and you push your weight around. But he says, if ever need be, you'll know how to defend yourself. And I always knew how to defend myself. It came in handy a couple of times in my career. And in this case, when this incident happened with my brother always said, my brother was not a fighter. He says, I'm an entertainer. I've never pretended to be a tough guy. So he says, I'm a worker. And he says, I'm an entertainer. Personally, I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm a tough guy, because every tough guy can have his day. But thing is, yes, I can take care of myself if need be. And the next day when that happened, I told my brother, I said, there has to be a receipt here. Now, I had just injured myself a week before, and I basically on crutches. I had a hard time walking. It took 9 months for that to heal. Yeah, and even in the matches in the beginning, I never came into the ring. We worked. I'd go to the ring just walking. I'd be sweating in pain just getting to the ring. My brother would do the match. He'd work it with our foundation. Worked it real quick. I never made it in, so we could get through it for a while. But it took a lot of time to heal. And I'd injured it with the Heart Foundation actually a week before, 10 days before. I said, there has to be a comeback. And I said, either you or me is going to do it. Now I said, if it's me, I'm going to have to heal up first, and then I'm going to do it. And he says, no, I have to do it. I said, fine. I said, I'll have your back. During that week, I spent the week teaching him how to lay his weight into the punches. In our hotel room, put a mattress up on the wall and show him how to transfer his weight into the shots. Preparing for when the count. We didn't know when the comeback was going to be, but it's going to be soon. But it could be a week, 2 weeks. One point, it's going to be an opportunity. And at that point after that, he was a little worried himself. He liked to play the big tough guy. But he always had a surrounding with him. He was always with Davey Moore. There was Don Morocco, Ultimate Warrior, Jim Powers. He always had his entourage with him. At one point, I said, his entourage is not going to be there at that point. Then you can get your receipt. And so when the time came, so like a week later, we were in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We're going to do TV. And Vince had heard about it. See, Pat Patterson knew me. Pat Patterson was there one night when I ended a wrestler's career. A wrestler that had taken liberties on my younger brother, Armand, that had just started. His name was Zaddy Nuff to the best. He was Pierre the Lumberjack, I think, for Vince's father. But he was 6'4", 260. He was upset because they had booked my brother Armand with him, who was just starting out. He said he wasn't at my level and he shouldn't have been booked with me. He beat the crap out of my younger brother. My brother came back. I was in the dressing room. I was on later with my brother Jacques tag team. I came out. I said, what happened to you? Saw it on his eyes were glazed over, and I asked the referee what happened. He said, well, Zaddy Nuff was upset because they booked your brother with him. Oh, he was? Okay. That night, we were sleeping over that city. I went to every hotel, tried to find him. I didn't find him. He was gone. 2 days later, his opponent did show up. We were at a town. Gino Brito was the promoter right then. And I said that Gino, his opponent did try. I was on the main event with Pat Patterson on that show. And Zaddy Nuff was on an earlier match. His opponent did show up, so I asked Gino. I said, Gino, put me with Zaddy Nuff. I says, Ray, I can't. You're on with Pat later. I said, no, this is personal. I said, you don't have to pay me. This is personal. Gino like that. I said, all right. A match for the boys. So he put me on with Zaddy Nuff. And when we got into the ring, I told Zaddy Nuff, I said, you were pretty tough with my brother the other day, huh? He says, so what the F do you care? I said, I do. And I said, tonight I'm going to be too tough for you. He says, we'll see. So I told the referee was looking, what's going on here? The referee told him, go in the corner. I said, this doesn't involve you. This is me and him. I said, just ring the bell, stand in the corner. I guess it was a prelude to the MMA today with no gloves. So bare knuckle fighting, But that was the last night that guy was ever seen in a ring. He left, he went back, his face bloody. I mean, got him good. He just went into the heel dressing room, grabbed his things, blood all over the place. He'd gone, never to be seen again. He left the province of Quebec. He left Canada. He moved to Carolina. He died actually this fall, I think. But he moved to his South Carolina or North Carolina, never to be seen again. So I knew Pat was there. He saw that, So when that happened with the Bulldogs, he told Vince, he says, Vince, this isn't over. He says, I know the Rougeaus. And he said, I know, Raymond, this isn't over. I'm telling you. So Vince says, oh, okay, well, I'll get them. So when we got to Fort Wayne, my brother and I were sitting at ringside on the edge, on the apron of the ring. And Vince came to see us. Hey, guys, how are you? Fun, how are you? He says, I have to go talk with Hulk right now. And he says, when I'm done, he said, I'd like to have a word with you guys. So I said, okay, no problem. So that's what my brother says. We got to do it now. Because we figured if he's probably going to tell us this ends now, you know. And so we headed towards the cafeteria where all the boys were. Just before I get there, I bump into Pat Patterson. So Pat's going, hey, how are you? I said, fine. He's talking to us. How are you? This and that. I said, good. I'm not really listening to what he's saying. Because as we're there, the door was to the left. So the guys were coming out. All of a sudden, we'd see his entourage, you know, would be coming out. One less. And then eventually, my brother says, I'm doing it. So I knew that Dynamite probably just walked out. So I'm not going to turn and look at it. And all of a sudden, you get, whoops, both of us are there. I just kept looking at Pat, but he's coming to my left. So Pat's kept talking to me, and I'm like trying to see without looking, and I'm not really asking Von, are you listening to me? Yeah, I'm not hearing a word he's saying. I'm just waiting. All of a sudden I hear, pow. That's where he lost his four teeth, you know, in the front of my lap. After that, that's where we went to see Vince. I knocked on the door. He was still with Hulk. And I said, Vince, we need to talk to you. He says, well, I'm not done with Hulk yet. I said, no, now. And I pointed to my brother's hand, and my brother's fist was full of blood. Vince says, oh, shit. And Hulk says, hey, I'm out of here, guys. He left. We went in there. That's where I told Vince. I said, Vince, I know you heard what had happened. I said, there had to be a receipt. And I figured if you were going to come to talk to us right now, it's going to be difficult to have a receipt after. So I said, if you want to fire us right now, I said, I could live with that. But I said, I couldn't live with myself looking in the mirror every day knowing nothing. There had been no receipt. So Vince, he says, I don't want to fire you guys, but stay here. So he wanted to go get the Bulldogs, bring them in, have us together. We finish this now, but they were gone to the hospital, and all that. So anyways, he had us leave the building and come back tomorrow. And he says, I'll get with you guys. So basically, the atmosphere wasn't that great. After that's getting back to your question, the atmosphere wasn't that great. You're in a work environment where a lot of physicality is going on. Some guys with big egos, big reputations that maybe have to try to be safe. Guys that will probably go on the behind and try to pump them. And now, because he's going to say, oh, I want to kill him. It's, hey, you got to get even, man. You can't let this go by. Guys coming to us, bumping us, saying, hey, he's going to want to get a receipt. You guys better, trying to work both sides again. There were no comments from us. There was the action that was done. There was a receipt. It's over. And we're not going to get into a soap opera where all the guys are going to start pumping us, pumping them. There were no comments. But you always had to look over your shoulder. And then not long after that, the Bulldogs had given their notice. And the last 10 days that they were there, we're in the same town as them, as fate might have it. So I told Vince, I said, there's only one problem here. I said, Dynamite's going to want to save face, this and that. He likes to be a comedian at times. I said, I'm telling you right now, because for 10 days, we're going to be crossing each other in buildings. We might be walking, he'll be coming, and we'll be coming. And all of a sudden, he gets close. He might just go up like this, just trying to be funny. I said, if he's within striking distance from me, I'm going to nail him. So I said, it's going to be a delicate situation. So he says, okay, yes, I agree. So he had us meet in San Francisco at the airport. That's, because they were on their way home. He had them fly in San Francisco. We were there to do TV. We're at the airport, the Admirals Club, Vince, the Bulldogs, and us. We said our piece. It was done. I can't say we were friends, but it was over as far as he said. The last 10 days, it's like everybody is saying, guys, be careful. There's a receipt being prepared. There's going to be a comeback. Thank you. Thank you. So all week, when my brother would take a shower, I just stand guard, let's say, and vice versa. So we're not going to be stupid, because it's, like Dynamite, he was like, they're finished. I'll never be come back. They're broken. They're this and that. All of a sudden, look, you wound up with no deep, So then everybody's saying it's going to be a comeback, going to be a comeback. No, there will be a comeback. And all of a sudden, there's another comeback. Then you say, man, I was stupid. You don't let your guard down. So we're always sticking close to one another and always expecting something could happen, but always ready for something to happen. So it wouldn't be out of the blue and it wouldn't be unexpected. It was expected. If it does, we're ready. If it doesn't, so be it, But at the same time, when that first happened, because a lot of guys were scared of Dynamite. They didn't want to get on his bad side, so they were staying away from us. But some of the guys like this. And they were coming to talk to us if they knew that nobody was going to stooge it. They were talking to us. And, a lot of guys came up and they said, it's been a long time coming for him. And it could have happened to a better guy, But they would never say that near him or never admit to it, but they tell us, And they'd say, you guys got balls, did what you did, But at the same time, we're all by ourselves. The guys that were happy, they'd stay away because they didn't want problems with him. And the guys that weren't happy, they weren't getting to those anyways because now they were unhappy. So it was a hostile environment, but I think that's where your personality comes in. It's either you make it or you break it. A lot of guys would have broken under the pressure, let's say, at that point. That's not in our DNA. We just stayed, continued. They were gone and we continued.
Right. So do you know why they gave their notice?
Yeah. In a way, I think they were kind of disillusioned with their own career at that point. I think it was difficult for them to continue because, he had lost face. I mean, Dynamite had lost face in that. I think it was difficult for him. He continued to have that aura that he had around him that was dissipated. So it's like he had to live in the same territory as us, which is no fun for him either. At the same point, I think that their best days were behind them, and they were a little disappointed maybe in the direction it was going. So all in all, I think they were having personal problems on top of it, plus the traveling, plus everything. It's like, that's it. So I think they gave the notice for all of the above reasons. Then they went to different promotions where they weren't on the road so much. They weren't around us. But I heard that after that, his life just down spiraled from there. So.
And then you mentioned the entourage. We'll move on after this last question. The entourage. So did you have issues after the Bulldogs leave? Also, Warrior is in this Dynamite Kid entourage. Well, other Warrior goes on to become world champion and pretty big run. Is that political power of his ruining your momentum a little bit, or is that not in the cards at all?
No, it wasn't in the card. The only thing is, I never spoke with him. Not somebody that I appreciated. I mean, you've heard plenty of stories about him, I mean, everybody has. He's not a person that I like very much. As far as attitude, as far as, I don't know, ego, as far as, I just didn't like the guy. And for him, he didn't like us because of what happened. So we'd be in the same dressing room or whatever. We just didn't talk, didn't look at each other, and that's the way it was. I remember at one point when I became an interviewer, I had to do an interview with him. So at that point, we did an interview, but, even then, I don't know. I didn't understand the guy. We're doing an interview. I was with Legion of Doom and Ultimate Warrior. They were coming to do a show in Montreal. He's going to be in the main event defending the WWE Championship. I'm talking about Legion of Doom. He's walking behind us looking like Casper the Friendly Ghost, had a sheet over his head. It could have been anybody, but I'm Ultimate Warrior is walking in and out of the picture, walking behind Legion of Doom and myself. Then all of a sudden he stops and he has a jug of water. He starts pouring water on me. That's it. I lost it. I threw the mic down. Yeah, Greg Soley was the producer, Gordon Soley's son. I said, get him the mic, and I said, here, you want to interview him, you do it. So I'm not interviewing him. I walked out, and I went to Vince because I was upset. And I went to Vince. I said, Vince, I said, he's your champion. He's the face of your company right now. He's baby face. I'm in Montreal. I've always been the top baby face in Montreal. I'm doing an interview for an upcoming event in Montreal where he's defending the WWE Championship, and he's pouring water on the announcer. I said, is that going to sell tickets? And I said, Vince, I'm being honest with you. I said, I had two solutions. When that happened, I looked at two solutions. One, I was going to turn and punch him in the mouth. And I said, two, I was going to walk out, and I'm not interviewing you. And I said, I'm coming to see you. That's the professional thing to do. But my first thing, I wanted to punch him in the mouth, but I didn't do it. He says, well, I'm glad you did. So, but he had said to an agent, go get Warrior, bring him here now. He came in, he chewed out Warrior in front of me. And Warrior apologized to me. And I told him, I said, what do you think you're going to sell? I said, you're the face of the company right now. You're this, you're that. I'm a baby face. You're pouring water on me. Wow, people say, we're going to go buy tickets to see him wrestle. I said, I don't think so. I says, he apologized. I said, no problem. I said, just be professional out there. And so we went back. We did the interview. He was always professional with me after that. But like I said, we weren't friends, And other guys were like, there was Bad News Brown, which was a good friend of Dynamite. And he was upset about what happened also. After that, when I became commentator and announcer, I remember I had some first time I saw on my sheet. Oh, I have to do an interview with Bad News Brown. Okay, that's going to be fun, But I went to see him, and I said, "We have an interview today." And he says, "Yeah, no problem," And he says, "How you doing?" And he was very pleasant with me. He was very polite. We never brought up the Dynamite incident, but I think he respected me out of that. I can't say he liked me because he didn't like what we did to the Dynamite, but he respected me. And after everything had cooled down, I think all the guys that were around him came to the reality of it was going to happen sooner or later. It was bound to happen one day. It just so happened that it happened with us. Even Bret Hart, when it happened, I saw him 2 days later, 3 days later, we were wrestling against the Hart Foundation. Bret came to see me, and he says, Ray, I'm really disappointed in you guys. He says, you didn't have to sucker punch him. Your brother didn't have to sucker punch him. I said, Bret, Dynamite instigated it. And I said, you don't need an invitation to war. And he says, yeah. And Bret always liked me after that, even before, but after that. And he came and he told me, he said, Ray, I understand where he came from. He says, I know. And he says, he had it coming. But we always had great respect. I even sent him a text message a lot ago saying, hi, how you doing? Text me back, sent him wishes for his birthday. A lot of guys that were around him, I think, with time, the dust settled, and they knew who he was. They accepted that. It was bound to happen one day. It just so happened that it happened there. And we didn't look for it. He's the one that provoked it.
Right. Yeah, that story is one of the most famous wrestling stories in the entire... seriously, so many stories have come out of territories and Dark Side of the Rings and all this stuff. But your story with your brother and Dynamite getting the British Bulldog is one of the stories that will forever be talked about. I include it in the Montreal screw job with Bret and Shawn, Earl. It's such a big part of people's lore because, again, without the internet, in the 80s and the early 90s, there was no way to even find this story out. And then one person tells a story to one person, and then suddenly everyone knows about it. And thank you for sharing so much about that because it's such a detailed story that everyone needs to understand. It really comes down to clearly what you're talking about is respect. Because if you just sat there was like, well, that sucks. Well, let's just keep working. And it's like you're walking around with a dog with the tail between its legs, afraid of what's going to happen next. But clearly, that was not the case. And, it reminds me of the story of having a Vader, where Vader had this aura around him of being a tough guy. Well, Paul Orndorff taught a lesson once in WCW, and the aura was gone. It was no longer tough guy Vader, but that Vader.
That's basically the same situation. A guy going around with an aura, all of a sudden that aura was gone.
Yeah. And then that aura probably doesn't cash the checks as much anymore either. Though, hey man, either way though, even in so many tag team matches, do you have a favorite tag team that you loved to run counts with?
There were a few actually. The Garvins, Ronnie Garvin and Jimmy Garvin. We had a feud with them here in 1985, which was one of the hottest feuds ever in the province of Quebec. We sold out everywhere with them. We had tremendous matches. I mean, the chemistry was just there. They were really on the ball. The Hart Foundation, we had very good matches with the Hart Foundation. I really enjoyed working with them. Who's going to doubt the talent of Bret Hart in the ring? The mastermind in building a match. My brother and I were good workers. Bret was a great worker. Jim Neidhart fit in. I mean, Bret coached him a lot, and he had his own personality, his own. They completed each other very well. The Rockers, I really enjoyed working with them. Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels. When we became the Fabulous Rougeau Brothers, and we did that angle with them where we hit Shawn Michaels with the megaphone on TV. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So we did that angle with them, and then we worked everywhere with them. We had, I think it was 15. They were called marathon matches then, but it's Ironman matches today. Pat Patterson's the one that came up. Pat knew I could work matches like that. I had hour matches with Pat Patterson, hit single matches, him and I, 1 hour Broadway, and my first 1 hour match, actually my first was 1 hour, 15-minute match. I was 17 years old for the Junior Canadian Heavyweight Championship here in Quebec. I went 1 hour and 15 minutes or 1 hour, 17 minutes. I was 17 years old.
Oh my Lord.
So I had done a lot of hour matches before. And so Pat came up to me, he says, Ray, he says, I want to run this by Vince, but I want to talk to you first. He says, I'd like to do matches with you guys and the Rockers. He says, 1 hour Broadway, we're going to call them marathon matches. And he says, at the end, you'll wind up even in the falls. So then you go to sudden death overtime. And we'll go another 10, 15 minutes. So our matches on average, we did 15 of them. We did them in Chicago and Long Island, West Palm Beach, different places, around the country. We did 15 of them. And our average was about an hour and 12 to an hour and 15 minutes. Because in the sudden death overtime, we'd go another 15 minutes. I remember when I brought it up, and I told Pat I loved it because I always liked to work. I loved being in the ring. I loved working. What I hated was traveling. But I said, because we're always in gents every day. But that's when I was happy, is being in the ring. So to go out and work a match like that, and the Rockers were great workers. But I remember the first time I brought it by, after I told Pat, yes, he's going to bring it to Vince. And I brought it, and I talked to Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels. I remember Shawn says, now I don't know what the hell we're going to do up there for now. I said, don't worry, we'll build it. Yeah. I mean, Shawn after that became a great worker. He was already a great worker, but, he could have even better matches. But I remember he was like, what are we going to do for an hour? I said, don't worry, we'll build it. Anyways, I could say those were the top teams that I enjoyed. The Garvins, Jimmy and Ronnie Garvin, the Hart Foundation, and the Rockers. Those were my three favorite teams.
The fact that you're having Broadway's marathon matches before they were ever really presented on main television is quite an achievement. And though you're taking on great teams, they're a team that you saw, you're like, oh no, we have to wrestle them. Is there someone like that?
I hate to say it, but yeah. I mean, not that I hate it because they were bad, but they were a little more difficult to work with. They were good guys. Nikolai Volkov and Iron Sheik. They were characters, but for me, it was limited what we could do with them. It's like Iron Sheik always had his same routine, his same pattern. No matter who he works with, he does the same thing, and everybody just falls into his thing. Like, but so for them, it was a little more difficult because you couldn't build a story. The heat they had was because of the personas they were not impersonating, but taking in, like, from Iran and from Russia and all. So they had their heat there. But at the same time, you go out, you want to have a match, they were clumsy. Like Nikolai was clumsy. He'd go to kick you in the chest, but he'll hit you in the chin and the chest, or go to kick in the stomach and hit you a little below the belt, or stumble on you, stuff like that. But they were nice guys. But I can't say we went and had great matches with them because you go out, work 10, 12 minutes and do their little thing. He'll sing his Russian national anthem. Iron Sheik try to put his camel clutch on and, say USA, USA. I remember one time working with him in Seattle, Washington. He goes, Rougeau, say USA. Back then. Introducing Montreal, Canada. I'll be going USA, USA. I said, Sheik, I'm not from the States. It doesn't matter. Just say USA. I refuse to do it. He was pissed off. But he always liked me. I always liked him. They were guys, but not the most exciting matches, let's say.
Yeah, that's so funny that you bring that up. Chant USA, USA. Because I remember Bret Hart first, Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9, and the crowd like, USA, USA. Bret's from Canada. Yokozuna is supposed to be billed from Japan. Who are you cheering for? The referee?
Yeah, exactly. But, it's one of those things that, like I said, sometimes you have to have the chemistry. The angle I told you we did with the garments, that was just something on the fly. We'll do something we did at an angle. It just blew up. Yeah, Ronnie Garvin spoke about it many times. I never expected it to go into it. We're just going to do a little angle. It just blew up. And we did sellouts all over, and great. The chemistry was there.
It's so funny, though, because you were talking earlier about being the backstage correspondent doing interviews. When I first got into wrestling in 92, there you are doing interviews. And then I went back, and my grandpa would bring me to the video cassette store that don't exist anymore. And I would rent the old Survivor Series and SummerSlams and Royal Rumble. And I'm like, wait a minute. The guy who's doing interviews used to be this amazing tag team. And as time would go on, obviously, I would recognize you. But at the same time, I felt like for so long, you were always fighting the Bushwhackers on pay-per-view. What was the design behind this? What you mentioned kind of earlier about maybe an injury, possibly? Because, why you always seem to be fighting the Bushwhackers?
Well, the thing was, when we worked with the Bushwhackers, it was towards the end of our... We had finished with the Rockers, the Hart Foundation, the Rockers, all that. And then we were on cruise mode at that point. And they wanted to, the Bushwhackers were like entertainers. They're doing their whoa and yay and all that. So we could have decent matches with them, but then we put them over. People would be happy and all that. And we were slowly going to be on our way out. Because at that point, I was OD of the roads, being gone 300 days a year. It's, I only got home 5 days a month, and that's, I like being home.
Well, yeah. Well, you're also getting bit in the ass by the Bushwhackers on the road. So, be home for 5 days, bit in the ass by the Bushwhackers.
There you go. But there were those guys. But like I said, for me, I know they were a gimmick. So you had to work the gimmick, get their gimmick over and all that. But that's not the type of wrestling I like to do. I like I worked with Ric Flair before. I enjoyed working with Ric Flair. I went at Broadway with Bob Backlund a few times, and there again, we're having wrestling matches. I like that. Uh, I wrestled Nick Bockwinkel. We went Broadway. Nick Bockwinkel, Nick Bockwinkel was a technical wrestler also. So, Ivan Koloff, you heard of him?
Yeah, I love Nick Bockwinkel. I want to just put out a good word about him. Is he doesn't get the credit he deserves.
All right.
So many wrestlers don't, but like he's one of them. I'm always confused. I'm like, do you know everyone just copied him eventually? Like everyone just stole, and it's whatever inspired, whatever you want to call it. But Nick Bockwinkel is someone who always needs to be brought up a lot more often. So thank you for doing that and saying that. But yes, no, I everyone you mentioned, I know. So continue.
I worked Ric Flair. I enjoyed that. Ricky Steamboat, we were in Atlanta when he started. I worked with him. Ricky Steamboat, great wrestler, and you can build a story. I mean, we all know Ricky Steamboat was a great worker. I worked with Paul Orndorff. Like I said, Nick Bockwinkel, Bob Backlund. So many good workers. Those are the type of guys that I could say, that's why I was a wrestler. To put on matches with guys like that, with Bret Hart. I could work an hour match with Bret Hart. I wouldn't sweat it. I mean,
House Schwacker.
No.
Just kidding.
Yeah, no, but basically, no.
You kicking your ass thick for an hour.
Yeah, for me, I was a little more. Even my brother and I had different styles. My brother was a little more of a high flyer than me. I was more of a solid base wrestler, but like Bret Hart could be. I could be a very technical wrestler. Like I said, I worked Pat Patterson. Pat Patterson was a great worker. I did hour matches with him. We were tag team champions together. We worked against each other. We did hour matches. This is one story. I convinced Pat one time. I said, Pat, let's work an angle. We'll come back. We'll have a boxing match together. He said, that'd be fun. He told that story right up until he died. And this is in the 80s. And now he died a couple of years ago. But he used to tell a story. He says, I had the dumbest idea of accepting to do a boxing match with Rougeau. And then he goes, just go out, that's around this. He said, I couldn't even touch him. And I was going there, boom, he hit me in the nose. He says, Jesus Christ. And then I'm like, it was funny. His story kept going on. And he kept going, knock me the F out. I was going, fine, bing, 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 bong, and the element goes down. The referee's counting 8, the bell rings, the end of the round. He says, God damn it. Came back, had to do it again. And then when it was fun.
Poor Pat. Oh my God, that's an amazing story. Yeah, this is like the greatest day ever, having all these stories being shared. Then Royal Rumble 1990 is really where you finish off, at least on pay-per-view, or maybe on a little bit of television after that, with your career in the WWF as an active wrestler. Why was that the right time to step away?
I still love the business, but like I said, I was overdosing traveling. Financially, I was set. I always invested in real estate. I bought properties. From the age of 17, I started investing in real estate. So financially, I was set. And at one point, I got back from a tour, and I was like ready to rip anybody's head off. And I said, my wife still probably says, what's happening with you? I don't even recognize you anymore. And I said, I don't recognize myself. And I started thinking, and I said, why am I still doing this? We finished in November of 89. And this is April 89. I was thinking that. So we're talking 7 months before I quit. And I started thinking, and the next day I told my wife, I said, 50% chance I'll be finished by September. 99% I'll be finished before Christmas. I figured September because I like to go moose hunting, and it's towards the end of September. I said I'll retire, and then I'm heading up in the woods going hunting. And but finally I didn't finish till then. And the thing is, I've never been an impulsive person. Sometimes somebody will be fed up and they just act on impulse. Oh, I'm fed up and I quit. Goodbye. I don't do that. I'll think it out. And sometimes you could go through a period. It could say, well, I'm set up right now. I go to the airport and I'd feel nauseous getting to an airport. That's how bad it was. I get in the plane that just feels sick. I didn't want to be in a plane anymore. We're flying 300,000 miles a year. That's one free ticket every 10 days average. Back in frequent flyer miles, every 10,000 miles, they give you a ticket. I was getting a free ticket every 10 days. I couldn't handle it anymore. So basically, I told my brother, I said, I'm tired of this. And he was ready to quit. He says, we quit now. I said, no, I'm going to give myself, my brother's a little more impulsive than I am. I said, no, let's think it out. This might just be a phase we're going through. Could last 3 weeks, a month. And I said, oh, okay, we're over it. And we keep going. I was going to give myself until the end of the summer. This is April, before making the full decision. So when we had SummerSlam 89, the next night we're doing TV, and that's where my decision was already made. I wanted to quit. But at that point, like I said, I didn't want to put Vince in that difficult position or an uncomfortable position to where we were being used very well. And all of a sudden, okay, bye, we're gone. Creates a hole in his business. I didn't want to do that. I appreciated what he had done for us. So the following day after SummerSlam 89, we're at TV, and my brother and I said we wanted to meet with Vince. So we went to sat with him, and he says, what can I do for you guys? And I said, Vince, I just want to leave. Vince looked like, what? I want to leave. I said, we've discussed it. We've talked about it for a while, and it's not on impulse, and it's not, it's not. He says, give me a week. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. I said, Vince, that's not where I'm at anymore. I said, you have to understand, when you're here, it's a wheel. You're in a grind, and you go, and you go, and you go. You can't say, well, like now, I think they can take some time off at time, but back then, that didn't exist. You're there or you're not. And I can't. I said, and I understand and respect it, but I said, that's the business. I don't want to be on that wheel anymore. I said, I just want to go home. I said, I want to ask you to respect that. So he says, but give me a week. I'll give you, he says, guys, you're too young to leave. Yeah, I was 34 years old. I was going to leave and retire. And my brother was 29. He's 5 years younger than me. So 29, 34. He said, I haven't even started what I want to do with you guys. I said, Vince, if you would have told me this a year ago, I would have been the happiest guy in the world. I said, I'm not there anymore. And I said, I don't feel it. I don't feel it's fair to the fans also, I look at all the guys and the injuries they accumulate over the years, the way it leaves you. And I said, and I had my share of injuries wrestling too. And I said, I don't think it's fair to the fans. If I'm willing to go out and give 95% of what I can do instead of 100%, I'm cheating them out. They're paying 100% of their ticket, and I'm only giving them 95% because I want to start being careful a bit. I'm not being fair to them, and I said, I don't want to do that. But I said, I don't want to lead you in an awkward position. I said, we're going to give you a 3-month notice. That's where we'll finish a Survivor Series in November. We're in August. We'll finish the Survivor Series. It was in Chicago. So I think it was, Chicago. So I said, well, that's where we'll finish up Survivor Series. But he says, still, just give me the week. And just give me the week. I said, okay, but Vince, I only have 2 words for you. And he said, he kind of looked at me, and I can sometimes get imagine what. I said, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for everything. It's been great. And I said, I just want to go home. So he says, okay, just hear my offer in a week. I said, I'll do that. So we left at that. Pat told me after, he says, I need to find a way to make him stay, And that night, I went back to the hotel, and in my mind, it was set. We said, I'm going to finish with Survivor Series. And I went to bed. Every time I'd fall asleep, I'd have a nightmare. I'd be on the road in a dressing room again. I'd wake up sweating because in my dream, like, I thought I was gonna wrestle anymore. I want to go home, and I was on the road again. Then I'd wake up, but I was having nightmares over it, just thinking that he wanted to come up with an offer. When I got up the next morning, I called his office, spoke to his secretary, and I told her, I said, "Look, this is Ray Rougeau speaking." I said, "I know Vince is going to come up with something. It's short. He wanted to make us tag team champions, wanted to push us. I mean, it was the world." I said, "I know he's going to come up with something very generous." I said, "Tell him my mind's made up. Ask him to please respect that. I just want to go on." He didn't bother me. And then he told Pat, "I need to find a way to keep him." About a month and a half later, Vince came up to me. "Hey, Red, how would you like to do some commentating?" I said, "Never thought about it. I've never been trained for this and that." But I said, "What's the schedule?" Yeah, it's the same thing. I'd rather wrestle. But he says, "No, we tape every 3 weeks. I'll have you come in once every 3 weeks." And basically, I'd go in studio once every 3 weeks. We'd record 3 shows, and then you go home. I said, "Okay." I said, "That's a schedule I could live with." So I'll do 1 day of voiceovers off 3 weeks. So basically, I'm working 17 days a year. I said, "Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, okay. I could try it." I started, and I enjoyed it. And eventually, he liked what I was doing. That implicated me more. Then I was flying to New York 1 day a week. Fly out in studio Thursday, then final, which was fine. Even at one point, I bought myself an airplane. I'd fly myself to New York every other week. So every 26, I've been a pilot for 39 years.
So Vince McMahon pretty much convinces you to stay based on travel scheduling, but then yet he still gets you to travel back and forth, getting your own airplane as well. But eventually, though, your brother, and as you left, your brother also left, but then returns as the Mountie. And at that point, are you thinking to yourself, like, you're going to try to convince me to have like a new character and show up here? And how did you feel about seeing your brother as a Mountie and you supplying your voice to other avenues in the wrestling?
And I was happy for him. He wanted to go back. He needed to work anyway. And he was still young, he still had more to do in his career. He wanted us to go back together, actually. Before he went back as a Mountie, he tried to convince me to come back as the Fabulous Rougeau brothers, but for me, I said, "It's over. I'm done," and I just didn't have the desire. And I said, "I'm very happy with what I'm doing." So that's when he came back as the Mountie, and I was happy for him, and I was happy with what I was doing. For me, it was a new challenge also, because like I said, I never had any formal training for that. And I learned as I went along, and it was an intellectual challenge. It was stimulating, and I like new challenges. It's mentally stimulating, and I thrive on that. Even now, now I'm the mayor of the city where I live, and that's one of the things that I like about it. They said, "What do you like about being a mayor?" I said, "I'm always learning, always, because you're dealing with infrastructures, speaking with architects and engineers and lawyers, and I'm talking to a lot of very intelligent people." And I said, "I'm gaining knowledge." And I said, "That stimulates me. And that's what I like." But it was the same when I became commentator. See, I was doing French commentating. I was doing simultaneous translation. Like when the guy was doing an interview, I'm translating simultaneously. And I have a producer speaking English, giving us directions. "Okay, guys, in 30 seconds, speaking in English. You're going backstage in 30 seconds is such a thing." I'm translating as the guy speaking. I'm taking account in English here, and I'm translating in French. So I'm listening to English, translating in French, and listening to English directions. That is challenging. In the beginning, I was shot. For 2 days, I was dead after that. But with time, it became second nature, because, we did that. And it became second nature. It was just normal to have somebody talking in English while I'm doing something else,
That sounds fun. That sounds challenging. Though you technically, you said you boxed Pat Patterson, but you also boxed Owen Hart. You came out of retirement at 96 to do this. How did this come to be? Because again, you haven't been in the ring for a few years now, And here you are boxing O&R in 96. How's this happen?
When I retired 5 months before my son was born, I didn't want to be on the road and have a child at home and never be home. So I had agreed that we could try for a child once I knew I was quitting the business and I was going to be home. So I retired from the road in November. He was born in April. When he was a kid, I was a commentator at that point when we interviews. So he was watching me on TV when he, 2, 3, 4 years old. Oh, Daddy, then he's watching me on TV. When he got a little older, like 4 or 5 years old, Dad, am I ever going to see you wrestle? Because I had tapes here of when I was wrestling with the Hard Foundation and the Rockers, all that. And he watched that and he was like, it's my dad, And he said, am I ever going to see you in the ring one day? I didn't want to say no, but I wasn't going to say yes. I said, maybe, And I said, maybe one day, I figured it would pass, but it didn't. And then he says, Dad, when are we going to see you in the ring? At that point, I was thinking, wow, I'd been out of the ring for 6.5 years at that point. And I was 41 years old. I'd been gone for 6.5 years. I'm like, well, if I want to do something, and I wanted for him to be able to see that in the ring. He was 6 years old. So what I did, I asked Vince, I went to see Vince, and I said, Vince, I'd like to come back, do one more match. He says, okay, great. I said, I want to do a boxing match. Why a boxing match? I said, because there's nothing I want to do in my wrestling career. And I said, I always liked boxing. When I was young, my dad had boxed with all the kids around and stuff like that. I'd box the gloves with him. And I said, I always liked boxing. So I said, for me to get into the shape I want to get, I always kept in shape. Actually, when I quit the business, I dropped 10 pounds. A lot of guys go up in weight. I went down 10 pounds. And I stayed there for the 6.5 years. So when I wanted to go for the boxing match, I dropped another 20 pounds. Yeah, 20 pounds. So my real weight when I ended my career, because I cut down a little bit, my heaviest I got was 236. When I ended my career, I was at 224. And then when I stopped, I cut my weight down to 214. So when I was doing the commentating interviews, I was at 214 all that time. Then for the boxing match with Owen, I was going to cut. I didn't know how far I was going to go, what I wanted to do. But I started training 6 months before the boxing match. And I wanted the fans when they go, because how many times when somebody comes back, they haven't seen it, it's like, oh, they remember the way you were. Then you come back and it's like, oh, wow, you're still okay, I didn't want that. No, I came back in the best shape of my life. I came back at 194 for the match. I was the same weight as when I was 19 years old. I was doing 1,500 sit-ups a day, running 5 miles a day, hitting the heavy bag every day, hitting the speed bag, jumping rope for 30 minutes. I mean, it was insane. I had a scare machine. Yeah, I was in really good shape. But that's what I wanted. So I told this, I want to do a boxing match. I want my son to see me in the rings. So actually, my first suggestion was I want to do it with Shawn Michaels, because we'd had that thing with the Rockers and all that. I said, Shawn Michaels like a good boxing match. But Vince as well, I'm trying to build him up right now. You wanted to build him as a top guy because these guys were going to WCW. And so I said, yeah, I understand. So he said, what about Owen Hart? He says, he was the king of the ring, and the King Owen and all that. I said, yeah, and Owen is good worker. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. So that's how that boxing match came about. I wanted my son to see me in the ring one time. I said, maybe one day, I wanted to make it a reality. And I have a picture at the end of that match. He's in my heart. He's 6 years old. He was at ringside, first row. And at the end of the match, I had a former boxing champion contender in my corner, my dad in my corner. I had my son come up in the ring. I have him in my arms. I got my dad, and Dino Clabet was a champion boxer. I've got that on a laminated frame. That's immortalized, So for him, and he was in the ring, he had his arm up in the air, and he was so proud. That was a thrill for me.
And then there's a picture next to that picture of your 6-pack abs at the time, right? No, that's amazing to hear. I have 3 children.
You know what? Since then, because I always like to give myself goals. When I finished the boxing match, I was at 194. I said, well, I brought my weight to here. I said, from now on, I want to maintain my weight between 195 and 200. So that I'm giving myself 5-pound leeway. As we speak right now, we're to what? This was 1996, so we're talking at 42. We're talking 26 years later. Okay, 26 years later, I'm 196 right now.
Look at you. 1996 on your body,
and I still work out 28 days a month.
You're a machine, I tell you. This man is not normal. He's a robot, I tell you. Though, one final question. Actually, 2 final questions. Because you said you're, boxing, but yet, if my research is correct, in 1998, you competed in the ring with your brother and Pierre against a very young Edge and Copeland, Sean Stasiak, and Tom Brandy, who was Saboteur Sincere. So, again, what's going on? Because this is a dark match on Shotgun Saturday night. And if no one knows what that show was, in the beginning, it was on at 1 in the morning, and it was taking place live in clubs. In 98, around this time, I believe it's taking place in arenas. So again, boxing match, you're coming in, 6-pack for your child. The whole story is for your child. What is this for?
Basically, I was done with the ring. But I had working papers in the United States, and my working papers that they had gotten for me was as a wrestler. But now I'm a commentator. So they had it modified to wrestler/commentator. But at the same time, to legitimize that I could still wrestle, they had to, like I did it once every 2 years or so, just for a couple little time. We came in that match. So I'm in a 6-man tag, came in, do it, chopper 2, bumbo. They taped it. They could show he still wrestles. So that legitimized my working papers back then.
Wow. And, one final question you brought up at the beginning. You said you didn't have a Hulk Hogan story, but it turns out you do, because he has put out a video saying that he wants you and your brother, the fabulous Rougeaus, in the Hall of Fame. Do you think that will happen? Because I've been reading many rumors that Vince McMahon is no longer in charge of Hall of Famers. It's Triple H, who has put forth massive ratings for the company, who has put together huge TV deals. Will the fabulous Rougeaus ever be in the Hall of Fame?
I think it could happen. The only thing is, the Hall of Fame for me is this certain political side, business side to it. At one point, my brother had some bad blood with Vince, so that put a little damper on that. Now you say it's not Vince, but I had a great relationship with Vince, so it kind of evened it out. Right. The thing is, I think if they always do that around a WrestleMania. If WrestleMania was to be held in Montreal, we'd be in. We'd be in. If you notice, when they have WrestleMania, they have a Hall of Fame ceremony, wherever it is, they'll have a certain local flavor to the Hall of Fame induction. It has to come to Montreal, I think, for it to happen for us. Who knows? Because let's just say, and I'm being very honest with you, if they have the WrestleMania in Dallas, Texas, they're going to introduce the fabulous Rougeau brothers to the Hall of Fame. It doesn't have that big a meaning to the Hall of Fame at that point. If it was in Montreal and they introduced the Hall of Fame ceremony, and this year, the fabulous Rougeau brothers, wow, they'd have the fans coming. It's business, and I understand that. So it's all a possibility, but will they ever do a WrestleMania in Montreal? I don't know.
This year it's in Philadelphia, so everyone believes it's going to be a heavy ECW type of Hall of Fame, because Philadelphia, ECW. Like what you're saying makes sense business-wise. It's always confusing to me, though, when a young wrestler who is still, I guess, like you mentioned earlier, when you came back, you want people to see you as you once were, not as what have you become. And we have seen wrestlers show back on TV out of shape, and you're like, I remember you completely different as a child, but it's also very hard to stay in the same exact shape you were when you were 25 versus when you're 55.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, so as far as the Hall of Fame goes, it could happen, but will it happen? I don't know. It's a big question mark. But I'd be glad to accept it because still, even if it's a business Hall of Fame, it's still a certain Hall of Fame and it's recognition. So, why not?
Have you ever, before we wrap this up, have you ever been involved in a Legends contract? Because I know wrestlers I've interviewed over the year, headbangers and other people like that have signed Legends contracts with their merchandise and action figures get licensed and put out on the website.
There's a company that we just signed an agreement with not long ago. They sent a picture of the action figure that probably be coming out in 2024. It'll be our first fabulous Rougeau brother action figure, official action figure. And
really, the Madden action figure?
No, we don't just before when
we just cut the cutoff.
Yeah, no, actually, when we left, that's what he wanted to do: action figures, tag team championship. I mean, the whole works. Like I said, I just wasn't there anymore. If you said this a year ago, I'd have been the happiest guy in the world. I said, now it's just not there. And it's that. Fame has never run my life. It's never run my life. For me, it's always been a business. I respect the business. I respect the fans. I'm grateful to the fans. I'm grateful I wouldn't have had a career without the fans. We wouldn't be talking right now if there weren't fans. So I'm appreciative of that. But, like I said, it was different times.
Well, I hope when you go in, Barry Manilow inducts you because
he's proud. He'd be happy to.
Well, because, as your song goes, we don't like heavy metal. We don't like rock and roll. All we like to listen to is Barry Manilow.
That would be suited, wouldn't it? For him to be there and introduce us induct us into the Hall of Fame.
It'd be great. I'd love it. It needs to happen. But all I have to say is today we have heard the tales of Raymond Rougeau. This has been an honor. This has been a privilege because now I've completed my task of interviewing not one, but both members of the Rougeau brothers. I interviewed your brother last year. Now here we are today. It's been an honor and it's been a privilege hearing all the stories and all the tales of the past, the present, and the future. I can't wait to buy your action figure, by the way. I'm going to put it on my mantle behind me. So I cannot wait to see this action figure. But again, thank you so much for sharing and being so honest today, right here on Tank Wrestling News Co. I've been Steve Paul. He's our future Hall of Famer, Raymond Rougeau. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.